The fire burned low in the middle of the clearing. Sparks drifted up into the night air, but the mist swallowed them quickly, as if the fog itself was alive and hungry. The predator pack sat close together around the flames, their long shadows bending and twisting across the damp ground. Their sharp teeth tore into the meat of the animal they had hunted earlier that day, and for the first time in many nights, their bellies were full. They were no longer starving. This was because of the human. The human sat with them, not eating as quickly as they did, but calm and steady. His eyes reflected the firelight, and his hands moved with quiet confidence as he carved a share of the meat. It had been many days since he had joined them, but the pack knew one thing with certainty. Without him, they would all be dead. It was the human who had shown them how to hunt in smarter ways, not with only claws and teeth, but with traps and patience. It was the human who had shown them how to use fire, how to cook, and how to make food last longer than this single desperate meal. Because of him, they had hope again. But tonight, that hope felt weak. The mist had grown thicker. It curled low around their legs and rose high into the dark trees above. Every sound seemed sharper. Every crack of a branch, every faint rustle in the distance made the predators lift their heads and growl. The human noticed this. His brow tightened as he studied them. The pack was restless. Their eyes shifted toward the mist too often. Their ears twitched at every whisper of the wind. He knew the signs. They were afraid. But what could make hunters like these feel fear? The pack leader, a scarred beast with silver fur around his muzzle, sat stiffly. His claws dug into the ground, and his tail lay flat against the dirt. His gaze never left the fog. Even as he chewed his meat, his body remained tense, ready to spring at any moment. The human spoke softly, his voice calm. "What is it?" he asked. His words were slow, for the predators did not understand all his language, but they understood enough. "What do you smell?" The leader's ears twitched. He did not answer at once. His yellow eyes turned toward the human, and for a moment there was hesitation. Then his lips curled back from his teeth, and in a low growl, he spoke a single word. "Hunters." The rest of the pack stirred. Their growls deepened. Their eyes flashed in the firelight. The human felt the air grow heavier. Hunters. He had heard them whisper that word before. Always at night. Always when the mist was thickest. He looked into the fog. At first, there was only darkness. Then, slowly, something changed. Two small red points of light appeared in the mist. They did not move at first. They simply stared back, watching, waiting. The human's grip tightened around the knife in his hand. He felt the hair rise on his arms. He had seen many predators in his life, but nothing about those red eyes felt natural. Another pair of eyes appeared beside the first, then another, and another. Soon the mist was full of glowing eyes. The predators around the fire lowered their heads, their growls breaking into uneasy whines. The strongest of them pressed closer to the flames, as if the fire could protect them from what waited beyond. The human rose slowly to his feet. He scanned the tree line, every muscle in his body tense. He knew predators well. He knew how they moved, how they hunted, how they killed. But these hunters were different. They were not rushing forward. They were not testing the edge of the fire. They were not making noise to frighten their prey. No, they were still, silent, patient. That made them far more dangerous. The human breathed slowly, steadying himself. Fear was poison. Panic was death. He knew that better than anyone. And right now, the pack was drowning in both. He turned to them, his voice low but firm. "Stay close to the fire," he said. "Do not run." The predators looked at him, their eyes wide and uncertain. They were creatures built for strength, for speed, for violence. But they had never faced enemies like these. The red eyes blinked in the mist. One pair vanished, only to reappear closer. Then another pair moved, faster than the human could follow. They were closing in. The fire crackled, but even its light seemed weaker now. The mist pressed tighter around them, thick and heavy, as if the night itself was alive and hungry. The pack leader gave a sharp growl, but even he stepped back from the edge of the fire. The others followed, pressing close together, their bodies trembling. The human did not step back. He kept his eyes on the mist, knife in hand, shoulders square. His mind worked quickly. He studied the ground, the fog, the distance between the trees. He searched for patterns, for signs, for anything that could tell him how these hunters moved. But the mist gave nothing. Only silence. Only red eyes. And in that silence, the truth became clear. The predators had learned to survive hunger. They had learned to hunt, to cook, and to live again. But survival against hunger was simple. This was something far worse. Something had come out of the mist, and only the human stood between the pack and the hunters that waited in the dark. The mist hung low, curling across the ground like a living thing. The red eyes were still there, unblinking, patient, waiting. The pack pressed closer together, their bodies shaking, their claws scratching the dirt as if they wanted to dig their way out of the fear. The fire popped and cracked, but its light felt too small, too weak against the vast darkness of the night. The human stood tall at the edge of the flames, knife in his hand, his back straight. He could feel the weight of the pack's eyes on him. They were used to being the strongest creatures of the forest, the hunters that others feared. But tonight they looked to him, because for the first time, they were not the predators. They were the prey. The human turned toward the pack leader. "What are they?" he asked in a calm voice. He already knew the answer, but he needed to hear it, needed the pack to face the truth. The leader's silver muzzle twitched. His lips pulled back to show sharp teeth, but his eyes betrayed his fear. He growled the word again, slow and heavy, as though the sound itself was cursed. "Hunters." The word rippled through the pack like a shock. Every predator stiffened, their growls turning into whines. Even the strongest of them lowered their heads. The human narrowed his eyes. "Tell me," he pressed. His voice was firm, steady, the voice of a man who had faced death before. "What do they want?" The leader's claws dug deep into the ground. He struggled to find words, his alien tongue rough, broken, but his meaning was clear. "They hunt the hunters." The human understood. These were not simple beasts. They were predators of predators, killers that fed on creatures who thought themselves strong, that explained the fear, the trembling, the shame in the pack's eyes. They had no defense against these things. The human looked back at the mist. The red eyes had not moved. Or maybe they had, and he had not seen it. They seemed closer now, sharper. Watching, always watching. He lowered his voice, speaking to the pack. "If you run, they will kill you. If you scatter, they will pick you apart. Stay close. Stay in the firelight." But even as he said it, he knew the fire was no shield. Fire was a tool, not magic. If these hunters were truly what the pack feared, then they would not stop at the edge of the flames. They would wait. They would test. And then they would strike. The pack leader let out a long, low growl. His ears were flat, his tail stiff. "We cannot fight," he admitted at last. The words were heavy, dragging, as though ripped from his pride. "The mist belongs to them." The human stepped closer, his voice cutting through their despair. "Then we take it back." The pack stared at him, confused. Their ears twitched, their eyes widened. They did not understand. To them, the mist was death. To the human, it was a battlefield. He crouched and drew lines in the dirt with his knife. Simple shapes. Circles, arrows, marks. He pointed to the fire. then to the mist, then to the trees. The predators leaned in, watching carefully. Slowly, they began to see what he meant. "Fire here," he said, pointing to one mark. "Spears here. Traps here." He lifted his eyes to the pack leader. "We do not run. We stand. We fight." The leader's growl rose in his throat, torn between fear and anger. But the human's gaze was steady, unblinking. Slowly, the leader gave a sharp nod. The pack moved. They did not fully understand the plan, but they understood the human. He had saved them before. He had taught them how to survive hunger. Now they would trust him against the mist. The human worked quickly. He had no wood for proper weapons, but there was enough for spears, long branches hardened by fire, tipped with sharpened stone. He showed the pack how to hold them, not like claws, but like tools. The predators fumbled at first, but their strength made up for clumsiness. Soon, each one held a spear, their confidence rising, if only slightly. Next, the traps. The human used rope from the hides they had saved, binding sticks together, shaping crude snares. He taught the pack to dig shallow pits, covering them with leaves and dirt. He did not know if the hunters would fall for such tricks, but even slowing them for a moment might save lives. The fire was fed with dry branches, piled higher. The flames roared brighter, pushing back the mist. For a moment, the clearing felt alive again, warm and secure. But the eyes never left. The human felt them, dozens of them, watching, measuring. The hunters were patient, smarter than beasts. They would not rush in blindly. They were waiting for the perfect moment. The pack felt it too. They whispered low growls to one another, their bodies pressed close, their eyes flicking between the fire and the mist. Their fear had not vanished, but something new had begun to grow beneath it, resolve. The human saw it. He knew the change when it came. Fear was natural. Fear kept you alive. But fear without courage made you prey. Now, as the predators gripped their spears and circled the fire, they were no longer prey. Not completely. The night dragged on. The mist grew thicker. The hunters did not attack, not yet. They circled, shadows in the fog, testing, waiting. Sometimes a red eye would blink out, and then reappear closer. Sometimes the sound of claws scraping stone echoed just beyond sight. Hours passed. The pack was tired, restless, but the human never let them break. He spoke when they faltered. He touched their shoulders when they trembled. His calmness spread through them like the fire's warmth. And then it came, a sudden rush of movement in the mist, a blur of black shape, fast as lightning. One predator screamed as it was dragged into the fog, its spear falling to the ground. The pack roared, but fear surged again. The human shouted, his voice sharp like a whip. "Hold the line." The predators froze, then obeyed. They raised their spears, snarling, their eyes burning with fury. The human stepped forward, his knife flashing in the firelight. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. The red eyes blinked again. Closer. Many. The human knew what this was. The warning. The hunters had tasted blood. The next attack would not be a test. It would be the beginning of the real hunt. He turned to the pack, his voice low but firm. "They think we are prey. Tonight, we show them we are not." The pack leader growled deep in his chest, a sound of rage, not fear. The others joined, their voices rising, echoing through the mist. The red eyes shifted, uneasy now. For the first time, the hunters had met something different. Prey that refused to run. Prey that sharpened weapons. Prey that stood with fire and courage. The mist thickened until the world itself felt like a cage. The fire hissed and spat as damp air curled around it. The predators stood in a ring, their spears tight in their claws, their golden eyes darting at every shadow. They were no longer whispering or growling. They were silent. It was the silence of creatures who knew death was near. The human felt it too. His skin prickled. His instincts screamed. The forest was too still. No insects. No birds. Only the faint scrape of claws in the fog. The hunters were close. Very close. He gripped his knife tighter. "Remember," he whispered, his voice steady. "Hold the line." The pack leader bared his teeth. His growl was low and fierce, more for his own courage than for the others. Still, the sound spread through the circle, giving strength to the pack. Then it came. A shriek tore through the mist, a sound so sharp it stabbed the ears. The firelight flickered. Shapes rushed forward, shadows moving faster than thought. The first predator in the circle screamed as something slammed into him. Claws ripped across his chest, dragging him backward into the fog. His spear clattered to the ground. The pack roared as one. Spears stabbed at the mist. The human shouted, his voice cutting through chaos. "Stay together. Don't break." Another shadow leapt. This time the human was ready. He swung his knife upward, catching a flash of pale skin. A scream echoed, high and unnatural, before the shape vanished again. Blood sprayed, black against the firelight. The predators tightened their circle. Their spears jabbed in quick bursts, pushing back the fog. For a moment it worked. The hunters shrieked, darting back, their red eyes circling wider. But the reprieve was short. 2 hunters struck at once, fast as lightning. One went low, dragging a spear down with it. Another went high, crashing into a predator's shoulders. The beast roared in pain as claws tore into him. The human lunged, driving his knife deep into the creature's side. Hot blood splashed his arm. The hunter thrashed, shrieking, then fell still. The pack froze, shocked. They had seen it. The human had killed one. The hunters screeched in fury. The mist boiled with their movement. The human's chest heaved, but his voice was strong. "They bleed," he shouted. He kicked the dead hunter's body toward the firelight. Its pale skin gleamed, torn and broken. "They can die," the predator snarled. Their fear cracked, replaced with something sharper anger. The next time a hunter darted forward, 3 spears struck it together. The creature shrieked, impaled, thrashing as the predators ripped it apart. The fire roared, casting wild shadows. The mist seethed. The hunters circled faster now, furious, testing for weakness. Then came the worst sound of all. The child, a small predator, barely grown, shrieked in terror as a hunter's claws hooked around his leg. He was dragged screaming into the mist. His mother howled, breaking the circle, chasing after him. The human cursed. No, but it was too late. Both vanished into the fog. The scream cut off. Silence followed. The circle trembled. Fear rushed back and like water through a broken wall. The human forced his voice into their minds, strong and unyielding. "Hold. Do not run." The pack leader growled, echoing him. "Hold the line." The hunters shrieked again, furious. They slammed against the circle, the shapes darting in and out. Spears clashed, claws tore, blood splattered the dirt. The fire wavered, sparks flying high. The human fought like a machine. His knife flashed again and again. He blocked with his arm, slashed with his blade, kicked with his boots. Every strike was precise. Every movement had purpose. He was one man, but he held the weight of the whole circle. The pack saw it. They matched it. Their fear hardened into rage. The spears stabbed deeper. Their roars grew louder. They fought not as beasts, but as warriors. Another hunter fell. Then another. The mist shuddered with the sound of their deaths. For the first time, the red eyes hesitated. The human stood over the bodies, chest heaving, blood dripping down his arm. He glared into the fog. "Come then," he growled. "We are ready." The pack echoed his roar. The hunters did not retreat. Not yet. They were not done. A new sound rose from the mist, a deeper cry, longer, colder. It was not like the others. It was a call, a command. The human's stomach sank. That was not a hunter's scream. That was a leader's. The red eyes shifted. Dozens blinked at once, glowing brighter. The mist swirled faster, drawn inward. The hunters were gathering, preparing for one strike, one overwhelming surge. The human's voice cut through the night. Brace yourselves. The pack pressed closer. Spears angled outward. Their growls shook the ground. The fire roared higher, as if sensing the coming storm. Shadows leapt across the trees. And then they came. The mist exploded as the hunters attacked together. A wall of claws and teeth, moving faster than the eye could follow. The circle shook under the impact. Spears snapped. Flesh tore. Roars and screams filled the air. The human fought like fire itself. He ducked, slashed, drove his knife into a throat. He grabbed a broken spear, drove it into another chest. He kicked, punched, clawed his way through the madness. Predators fell around him, bleeding, screaming, but still they fought. The hunters shrieked, furious, their pale forms flickering through the fog. One slammed into the human, driving him to the ground. Its jaws snapped at his throat. He caught them with both hands, straining, his muscles burning. The stench of blood filled his nose. Its claws scraped his chest. With a roar, he twisted, driving his knife up through its skull. The creature spasmed, then collapsed on top of him. He shoved it off, chest heaving. The pack leader fought nearby, his silver fur soaked in blood. He drove a spear through one hunter, then tore into another with his claws. His roar was wild, desperate, but full of fury. The hunters pressed harder, but they were dying. One by one, spears found their marks. One by one, bodies fell into the firelight. The mist grew darker with their blood. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. The hunters pulled back. Their shrieks faded. The red eyes blinked once, twice, and then were gone. The clearing was silent, except for the crackle of fire and the ragged breathing of survivors. Bodies lay everywhere, hunters and predators alike. The ground was black with blood. The air stank of death. The human stood, his knife dripping, his body shaking but unbroken. He looked around. Half the pack was gone. The child, the mother, many others. They would never return. The survivors stared at him, their eyes wide. He had stood with them. He had killed the unkillable. He had shown them the hunters could bleed. But in their eyes he saw no victory, only the shadow of what was still to come. The mist was not gone. It still curled around the edges of the clearing. It was only waiting. The human lifted his head. His voice was hoarse, but strong. This was only the beginning. The pack leader nodded, his silver muzzle grim. The mist has a master. The human tightened his grip on his knife. He already knew. The sound he had heard, the deeper cry, was proof enough. The first attack was over. The real war was about to begin. The fire had burned low. Its glow was no longer a shield, only a tired flicker in the dark. The survivors sat in silence, their bodies torn, their eyes hollow. The ground was stained with blood. The mist still coiled around the edges of the clearing, patient and cold. The human stood apart from the pack. His knife was red, his arms heavy, but his mind was awake. He kept his eyes on the trees, on the fog, on the spaces between shadows. He knew the hunters were still out there. He knew they were not finished. The pack leader limped toward him. His silver fur was matted with blood, his side gashed open, but his eyes were hard. "They will come again," he growled. The human nodded. "Yes, but not all at once." The leader tilted his head. "Why?" "Because they are clever," the human said. He crouched, running his finger through the dirt. He drew a single mark, A circle, small and tight. One will come. Quiet. Alone. To test us. To break us. The pack shifted uneasily. Their ears twitched. Their tails lashed. The thought of one hunter was somehow worse than many. Alone, it would stalk them like prey. The human's voice was calm. It will not rush. It will not roar. It will wait. Watch. Strike when we are weakest. As if the mist itself had heard him, a branch cracked in the distance. The pack froze. The human lifted his head slowly. His eyes searched the fog. Nothing. Only silence. He rose to his feet. It has begun. The pack pressed closer together, their spears shaking in their claws. They looked at the human for direction. He did not tell them to relax. He did not tell them to sleep. He told them the truth. Do not blink too long. Do not let go of your spear. If you hear nothing, listen harder. The pack leader growled his approval. The circle reformed, tighter, smaller. The fire was fed again, though the wood was nearly gone. Hours passed. The mist thickened. The silence grew heavy. Then it came. A soft sound, almost too soft to hear. A scrape of claws against bark. The human's head snapped toward it. His eyes narrowed. There, he whispered. The pack squinted into the fog. At first they saw nothing. Then a shape. Pale, tall, moving slow. It did not charge. It walked. Step by step, silent but sure. The hunters that attacked before had been fast, wild, furious. This one was different. It was calm, patient, a shadow with purpose. The human's grip tightened on his knife. Do not move, he ordered. The pack obeyed. They held their breath, their eyes locked on the figure. The silent stalker stopped just beyond the firelight. Its red eyes glowed, steady, unblinking. It did not hiss. It did not roar. It only watched. The human felt the weight of that gaze. It was studying him, measuring him. The pack leader growled low in his chest, but the human raised a hand. No, he said. Not yet. The stalker circled. Slowly, smoothly, like mist itself. Its steps made no sound. The firelight caught glimpses of its skin, pale, stretched tight over muscle, scarred from battles past. Its claws were longer than the others, curved like blades. The human realized the truth. This was no ordinary hunter. This was an elder, a master. The others had died, but this one had lived. It had learned, and now it wanted him. The stalker stopped again, this time behind the circle. The pack turned, spears trembling. The human kept his eyes steady. Do not break, he whispered. It wants fear. Don't give it. The stalker waited. The fire popped, sparks flying high. Still it did not move. Then, faster than sight, it struck. A spear snapped in half. A predator screamed as claws tore across his arm. Blood sprayed the dirt. But before it could drag him into the mist, the human lunged. His knife slashed upward, sparks of blood flashing. The stalker hissed for the first time, its voice low and furious. The pack roared, stabbing with their spears. The stalker darted back, vanishing into the fog. Silence followed, thick and heavy. The wounded predator clutched his arm, whimpering. The human crouched, tearing cloth to bind the wound. His voice was steady, sharp. It will come again. Be ready. The pack leader snarled, his teeth bared. It plays with us. Yes, the human said. His eyes stayed on the mist. And that makes it more dangerous. The night dragged on. Again and again, the stalker struck. Quick, sudden, vanishing before they could kill it. Each time, it left blood behind. Each time, the circle grew weaker. The human's mind raced. They could not win like this. They had to trap it, force it to fight on their terms. He glanced at the fire. The flames were low, but the coals glowed red hot. An idea sparked. He leaned close to the leader. We draw it in. We blind it. The leader's ears twitched. How? The human smile was thin, with light. He grabbed a branch from a fire, the tip blazing. He lifted it high, waving it slowly. The stalker's eyes flickered in the mist, drawn to the movement. Now, the human whispered. The pack moved. They shifted the circle, leaving a gap where the fire burned hottest. They lowered their spears, waiting. The stalker crept closer. Its eyes locked on the flame. Step by step, it slid forward, silent as death. The human waited, his hand clenched tight on the burning branch. His knife gleamed in the other. Closer, closer. The stalker lunged. The human hurled the burning branch. Flames burst across its face. The creature shrieked, the sound tearing the night apart. It thrashed, blinded, its claws slashing wildly. Now the human roared. The pack struck as one. Spears drove into its chest, its arms, its throat. The stalker screamed, its body twisting, blood spraying the dirt. The human leapt forward, knife flashing. He drove it deep into the stalker's skull. The scream cut off. The stalker fell. The mist shivered. For a moment, it seemed to pull back, curling tighter around the trees, as if retreating. The pack stared in silence. The silent stalker lay still, its body broken, its eyes dark. The leader raised his head, his growl turning into a roar. The others joined, their voices shaking the forest. They had killed the elder. The human stood over the body, his chest heaving. His arms trembled from exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp. He looked into the mist. It was not gone. It was only waiting. He wiped his knife clean on the stalker's hide. His voice was quiet, but the pack heard every word. This was not the last. The leader nodded grimly. The mist still listens. It waits for its master. The human's gaze stayed on the fog. He already knew. The stalker had been a test, a warning. The true master had not yet come, and when it did, the forest itself would tremble. The stalker's body still lay in the dirt, pale skin torn, red eyes dark, its blood soaking the ground. The pack circled it in silence. Some touched it with their claws, sniffing, as if to prove it was real. Never before had one of the mist's chosen been killed. But the human did not celebrate. His eyes stayed on the trees, on the curling fog that never left. The mist had not broken. It had not lifted. If anything, it felt heavier now, pressing down, colder than before. The leader limped to his side. His silver muzzle was streaked with blood, his eyes hollow from loss. "It is dead," he said, as though needing to hear the words aloud. The human nodded slowly. "Yes, but killing it was only a step. The mist has not left. That means something worse is still here." The leader's ears twitched. Worse. The human crouched beside the stalker's corpse. He pressed his hand against its chest. The skin was scarred, layered with old wounds. This creature had lived long, too long, feeding in the fog. He glanced at its claws, longer than the others. Its teeth were worn, chipped from endless kills. This was no leader, he said at last. It was a soldier, a servant. The pack shifted uneasily, their growls low, their tails stiff. If this was only a servant, then what kind of master commanded it? The mist answered before the human could. A sound rolled through the forest, low, deep, like thunder in the bones. Not a shriek, not a cry, but a voice too large, too heavy for any single throat. The trees shook. The ground seemed to hum. The pack dropped low, ears flat, claws scraping the dirt. Their fear was instant, raw, primal. They knew that voice. The leader whispered one word, his voice trembling despite his strength. "The master." The human's grip tightened on his knife. His jaw set hard. He did not bow, did not cower. He stood taller. "Let come," he said. The fog thickened, swirling like a storm. Shapes moved within it, dozens of red eyes, hundreds circling, weaving, like stars in a dead sky. But none stepped forward. None attacked, because they were waiting. And then it appeared. At first, only a shadow. Taller than the trees, wider than the clearing. A shape that bent the mist around it, as though the fog obeyed. Slowly, the figure grew clearer, though never sharp. Its body seemed half real, half smoke. Its limbs were long, its claws endless, its face hidden behind a veil of shifting white. Only its eyes burned bright, two suns of crimson fire. The pack whimpered, something they had never done before. Their bodies shrank close to the ground. The leader himself lowered his head, unable to meet that gaze. The human did not move. His eyes locked with the red fire. The master stepped closer. The air grew colder. The fire bent toward it, shrinking, as though the flames feared to burn too high. And then, to the horror of all, the master spoke. Its voice was deep, layered, like many mouths speaking as one. The words were broken, harsh, but clear enough. "You kill mine." The human's chest tightened, but he forced his voice strong. "Yes." The master tilted its head. The mist swirled faster. Small flesh alone against us. Its claws twitched. "Why?" The human's eyes never left it. "Because you hunt them," he said, pointing to the pack. "Because you think they are prey." The master's laugh shook the trees. Low, rumbling like rocks breaking. "They are prey. All are prey. Even you." The pack whimpered again, pressing tighter together. They could not lift their heads. The weight of the voice crushed them down. But the human stood unbroken. His voice rose, sharp, defiant. "Not me." The master's eyes flared brighter. The mist churned. Shadows rushed forward, hunters darting to the edge of firelight. But the master raised a claw. They froze. It wanted this moment. It lowered itself, its vast body bending closer, until its burning eyes loomed just above the fire. The heat of them seared the air. "Show strength," it whispered. The human understood. This was no simple beast. This was an intelligence. Ancient, cruel, proud. It tested him. His grip on the knife tightened. His heart thundered. But he did not look away. "You want strength," he growled. "Then see it." He turned to the pack. His voice was a command, sharp and loud. "Stand up." They trembled, confused. The master's presence crushed them. Their bodies wanted to curl into the dirt. "Stand," the human roared. The leader's head rose first. His silver muzzle lifted, his growl deepening. Then another predator. Then another. One by one, they rose from the dirt. Their claws dug in, their spears lifted. Their golden eyes burned. The master's red gaze shifted, studying. The mist stilled, as though waiting. The human lifted his knife high. The fire caught the blade, gleaming bright. His voice rang out, strong enough to cut the silence. "They are not prey. Not anymore. Not while I live." The master did not laugh this time. Its body shifted, its shape blurring, as though smoke and flesh twisted together. Its eyes narrowed. Then it whispered again. "Then you die first." The mist exploded. The fire guttered. The red eyes rushed forward, dozens, hundreds, swarming. The master did not move. It only watched. The human shouted, his voice thunder. "Hold the line." The pack roared, their spears flashing, their claws tearing. They met the hunters head-on. The clearing shook with the clash. The human threw himself into the fight, his knife slicing, his arms burning. Every strike was fueled with fury. Every cry echoed against the mist. The master's shadow loomed over it all, unmoving, patient, watching the storm it had unleashed. The ground was soaked with blood. The fire struggled. The pack screamed and roared, their circle holding but cracking under the endless waves. And still the human stood. He slashed one hunter down, then another. He kicked, punched, stabbed, his voice raw with command. He did not retreat. He did not falter. He fought as though every strike was proof. The humans were not prey, and never would be. The master's eyes burned brighter. For the first time, its whisper carried a note not of pride, but of interest. Human, it rumbled. The battle raged on. The hunters pressed, the pack bled, the fire shrank. But in the center, the human fought like fire itself, and the master of mist watched. The night was far from over. The clearing was chaos. Firelight flickered weak and low, shadows whipping across the ground as hunters poured from the mist. Their shrieks cut the night, claws flashing, teeth snapping. The pack fought with everything they had, spears stabbing, roars thundering, but the tide was endless. And above it all, the master of mist stood like a mountain of shadow, its burning red eyes watching. It did not strike. It did not need to. Its army was enough. The human's arms ached, his knife slick with blood, but he never stopped. His movements were sharp, fast, every strike cutting deep. He blocked a claw with his forearm, drove his blade into a throat, then spun to kick another beast back into the fire. His chest heaved, sweat and blood mixing on his skin, but his voice was strong. "Hold the line," he roared. The pack obeyed. They pressed tighter together, their circle closing in around the fire. Their growls shook the ground, their spears flashing like fangs. They had lost many, but they fought harder than ever. Their fear turned to rage. A hunter lunged at the leader. The silver-furred beast snarled, snapping its jaws around the creature's neck. With a sickening crunch, he tore it apart, throwing the body into the dirt. His golden eyes blazed as he raised his spear again. The human glanced at him, and for a moment they understood each other without words. They were no longer man and beast. They were brothers in war. But the hunters did not slow. More came, always more. The circle shrank tighter, bodies pressing shoulder to shoulder. Blood ran like water across the dirt. The human knew they could not last. Not like this. His eyes darted to the fire. It was small now, nearly gone, but the coals burned hot, red as iron. An idea sparked in his mind, dangerous, desperate, but their only chance. He shouted above the noise. "Wood, feed the fire." The pack growled in confusion. There was no time. No wood left. "Anything," the human roared. "Spears, bodies, anything that burns." For a moment they hesitated. Then the leader growled, a sound of pure command. At once the pack obeyed. Broken spears were thrown into the flames. Fallen hunters' bodies, pale and dry, were dragged into the fire. Flesh caught, smoke rose, sparks burst high. The flames leapt, roaring, brighter than before. The mist hissed and recoiled. Hunters shrieked, shielding their eyes, their movements faltering. The human's chest heaved. "Push them back." The pack surged forward as one. Spears stabbed, claws ripped. They shoved the hunters into the fire, their roars shaking the night. For a heartbeat, hope burned with the flames. But then the master moved. Its vast shape stepped closer, its shadow swallowing the light. Its voice rolled across the clearing, deep and cold. Enough. The fire bent, shrinking under its presence. The mist swirled faster, smothering the flames. The hunters rallied, shrieking, pressing in once more. The human stomach clenched. The master's power was too strong. No fire, no spear, no trap would kill it. Not like this. His mind raced. He remembered the stalker. It had died when he blinded it with flame, when the pack struck together. The master was bigger, stronger, but it was still flesh, still bound by some law of the world. If they could strike its body, its true body, it could bleed. He shouted, his voice raw. Not the hunters. The master. The pack froze, stunned. Attack the master? Impossible. But the human's eyes burned with fury. Do you want to live? Then strike the one that commands them. The leader roared, his silver fur bristling. He lifted his spear, pointing it at the towering shadow. His voice thundered. With the human, the pack howled as one. The human ran first, charging straight at the master. His knife gleamed, his lungs burning. The pack followed, a wave of snarls and spears, their courage lit by his fire. The master's eyes flared wide. The mist boiled, hunters shrieking in fury. But the pack plowed through, cutting down anything in their path. The ground shook as the master stepped forward, claws swinging. One predator was torn apart instantly, another crushed. Still the others pressed on. The human darted through the chaos, fast and sharp. He dodged a swipe, rolled under a claw, then leapt onto a fallen hunter's body to gain height. His knife slashed upward, striking the master's arm. The blade cut deep. Black blood sprayed. The master roared, a sound that split the sky. The mist shuddered. The hunters froze, shocked. For the first time, their master had bled. The pack howled in triumph. Spears stabbed into the master's legs, claws tearing at its shadowy hide. The air filled with blood and fire. The master thrashed, furious, its claws cutting swaths through the pack. Bodies flew, screams echoed. But the human clung tight, his knife flashing again and again. Every strike drew more blood. The leader leapt high, his silver spear driving into the master's chest. The beast roared, staggering, its shadow flickering. The mist shrieked. The red eyes blinked and dimmed. The hunters faltered, their bodies twitching as though their strength was draining. The human's voice rose, hoarse but unbroken. It bleeds. Kill it. The pack surged with final fury. They stabbed, tore, ripped, their roars drowning out their fear. The master staggered again, its vast body cracked, its shadow unraveling. Its voice thundered, rage mixing with something new, pain. Human, it growled. You defy. The human's knife struck deep, straight into its burning eye. The master screamed. The sound shook the trees, split the ground, tore the mist apart. Its body convulsed, its claws thrashing wildly. The pack scattered, diving clear. The shadow exploded in a burst of black smoke. The red eyes vanished. The hunters collapsed, lifeless, their bodies turning to dust. Silence. The mist was gone. The human fell to his knees, chest heaving, blood dripping from his arms. His knife clattered to the ground. Around him, the pack rose slowly, their golden eyes wide, their bodies trembling. The leader limped forward, his silver muzzle low. He looked at the human, then raised his head high. His roar shook the night, a sound of victory, of survival. The others joined, their voices rising, filling the forest. The human lifted his head. His chest was heavy, his body broken, but his eyes were steady. They had stood against the mist. They had killed the unkillable. But he knew this was not the end. The master was dead, yes. The mist was gone. But things that old, that powerful, left shadows behind. And somewhere, far beyond the forest, something had heard it scream. The mist was gone. For the first time in many nights, the stars shone clear above the forest. They were sharp and bright, like 1,000 burning eyes. But these eyes were not watching with hunger. They only watched in silence. The human lay on his back, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His arms were cut, his clothes torn, his body painted with dirt and blood. But he was alive. His knife was broken, snapped in two beside him. His fire had burned out. And still, he had won. The predators gathered around him in a wide circle. Their fur was matted with blood, their golden eyes tired, but none of them bowed their heads in defeat. They stood tall, shoulders straight, spears raised. They had fought beside the human and lived. The leader limped closer. His silver muzzle was stained dark, his breathing rough, but his eyes were bright as fire. He looked down at the human for a long moment, silent. Finally, he lowered himself onto one knee. His spear touched the earth. His head bowed. The pack followed at once. One by one, they knelt, their great bodies pressing low to the dirt, their voices rumbling with deep growls of respect. The human pushed himself up slowly, his body screaming with pain. He looked around, eyes meeting theirs. He had seen them afraid, starving, broken. Now he saw something new. Pride, strength, a spark that had not been there before. He swallowed hard. "Stand," he said. The leader's ears twitched. Slowly he rose. The others followed. The human's voice was quiet but firm. "You lived. You fought. You bled. You are more than beasts now. You are warriors." The leader tilted his head, as if tasting the word. Warriors. A sound strange and sharp, but filled with weight. He growled, and the pack growled back, the word echoing in their throats without speech. But the human's eyes grew serious. He pointed to the place where the master had fallen. The ground there was black, cracked, as if burned by something too deep for fire. Nothing grew there. Nothing ever would. "The master is dead," the human said, "but death leaves shadows. You must be ready. Others will come. Others always come." The leader's muzzle lifted. His eyes glowed in the starlight, steady and fierce. He understood. The pack understood. They would never be prey again. Dawn rose slowly over the forest. The predators had gathered the bodies of their fallen. They laid them in a ring around the clearing, their claws tracing patterns in the dirt. It was a ritual, old and sacred. They had always done this, but never with such weight. The human watched in silence. He had buried his dead before, far away, long ago. The memory pressed heavy on his chest. But here, among these beasts, he felt something strange. Not sorrow alone, not emptiness. It was unity. When the last body was laid down, the leader raised his head and gave a long, low howl. The pack followed, voices blending into one sound that carried into the sky. The human felt the sound in his bones, deep and strong, like the earth itself was singing. He closed his eyes and listened. When the howl ended, silence fell again. The leader turned to the human and pointed his spear to the sky. The human understood. The fight was not over. It would never be over. But they were no longer alone in it. Days passed. The predators trained. They hunted in packs, not just for food but for skill. They practiced with spears, with fire, with the simple traps the human had taught them. The movements grew sharper, their eyes brighter. They no longer trembled in the mist. They moved like hunters of the mist themselves. The human watched and guided. He showed them how to stand shoulder to shoulder, how to listen for patterns, how to strike not with fear, but with timing. His voice was steady, his patience endless. At night, they gathered by the fire. They shared food, stories, growls, and laughter. The human sat among them, no longer apart. He had once been a stranger, a fragile creature in their world. Now he was something more. Not one of them, but not outside them. He was their bond, their teacher, their proof that courage could rise even when the night was darkest. But the human never forgot the master's scream. He remembered how the sound had carried beyond the forest, as if it had torn the sky itself. Somewhere out there, something had heard, something that might come one day. Drawn by that final cry, he sharpened his blade each morning. He walked the forest's edge each night. His eyes never stopped watching the stars. The pack saw this. They did not question. They trusted. If the human was wary, they would be wary too. For they knew one thing now. He was never afraid without reason. One evening, as the sun sank low, the leader approached. His silver fur glowed red in the light, his golden eyes fixed on the human. "You will leave," he said, his voice deep and certain. The human looked at him. "One day." "Not yet." The leader tilted his head. "Why not?" The human's eyes drifted to the horizon, where the forest ended and the world stretched far. His voice was soft. "Because I am not finished. You are not finished. When I leave, You must stand without me. And to do that, you must be ready for more than survival." The leader's growl was low. More than survival? The human nodded. To build, to grow, to lead. The leader was silent. Then he lifted his head high, his chest swelling. "Then we will learn, until you leave." The human met his gaze, and for the first time since the mist, he smiled. The seasons turned. The pack grew stronger. Their numbers rose again, their young learning not only to hunt but to fight with fire and spear. They carved marks into stone, symbols the human had taught them, a language of memory. They remembered the night of the mist. They remembered the master. And above all, they remembered the human who had stood when all others would have fallen. The forest itself seemed to change. Where once the mist had crept, now light shone. Where once the predators hid, now they walked proudly. They were no longer prey. They were no longer shadows. They were something new. On the night of the first new moon, the pack gathered again around the fire. The stars were bright, the air sharp and cold. The human stood before them, his hands scarred, his eyes steady. He looked at each of them, their faces lit by flame. He saw warriors, hunters, leaders, and he saw something else, hope. He raised his broken knife, the blade dull and chipped. His voice carried strong and clear. "You will face darkness again. It will come in new shapes, with new claws, with new shadows. But remember this, you are not slaves to fear. You are not prey. You are more, always more. If one human can teach you this, then nothing in the stars can take it away." The pack roared, their voices rolling like thunder. And for the first time, the human felt the truth settle in his chest. This was not only their legacy, it was his. He was no longer just a survivor, no longer just a wanderer in a strange world. He had given them strength, and they had given him purpose. The fire roared higher, sparks rising into the night. Above, the stars burned bright. Somewhere out there, more shadows waited. But here, in this place, under this sky, the human and the pack stood ready, together, forever.